Dudes and dudettes, how are you guys? This is Chazzy and welcome back to Chazzy's Top 10, the segment on this channel where I give you guys random lists about random topics that I select randomly all across the pop culture terrain, These videos are actually pretty rare on my channel, but I'm going to make a note of, in 2025 doing them a little bit more frequently because lists are very popular on YouTube and I love pop culture, so I always have something to talk about and make lists of and whatnot, right? So it's gonna be all good. Today I'm going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is gaming, and I'm going to be covering what I consider to be the top 10 best games on the original Xbox console, the one that was released back in 2001, right? The original actual Xbox, right? Now, this list is going to be a mixture of my personal opinions and also research that I've done online, right? So there are going to be games that I like and also don't like, but even if I don't like them, I have to, tip my hat to their greatness on the original Xbox console, right? And let's already begin getting right out of the gate, I'm going to be doing this in the traditional order of the 10th all the way down to the 1st, right? So in reverse order or regular order, depending on how you view top 10 lists. Let's begin with the first item on the list. Number 10 is Fusion Frenzy. This is a pretty underrated party video game developed by Blitz Games and published by Microsoft Game Studios, right? This game was actually not only a launch title for the Xbox, but it was also the first mastered game, the first game to be completely rendered on the original Xbox, and it was also made to fill this niche for party games that they have at the time, right? 4 players can compete together in 45 different mini games, and it's really, really fun. If you played it, you know how good it is. Really good accessibility, a really nice visual presentation as well. And now, this game was special because it showcased the early capabilities of the Xbox back when it released, but there was some criticism directed towards a few things, like people thought it was a little bit too repetitive and there was a limited variety of video games even though there were 45, right? If you played this game back in the day, especially with your friends, you know how fun it was, right? Especially that couch co-op with some snacks and stuff. It was a lot of fun, criminally underrated, and that's why it's on this list here, but it has to start off the list. It's not one of the greatest, but it is still here, right? Almost got edged out because of as an honorable mention, but I still like it a lot. And it doesn't really compare too much to the next one, right, which is a little bit more action-oriented. We have Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. This right here is a stealth video game that was developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by just regular Ubisoft, no Montreal in the name there. You play as an NSA Black Ops agent named Sam Fisher, and you use equipment like, night vision and thermal goggles to stay concealed as much as possible. The idea is to play the game without being detected or caught or engaged by the enemies, hence why it's a stealth game. Now, I realized that this has a very interesting market. It was released in 2002, right? So a year after the Xbox came out. It had some really cool features, some nice high-tech gizmos and stuff, and it was very, in a market where games are a lot of FPSs with shooting, and explosions and this and that and close quarters combat, this was a little different. There was a lot of critical acclaim and a lot of sequels came out as well. Like for example, Splinter Cell Double Agent, which I played on 360 and didn't really like so much. I'm not a big fan of this game. It's nice, it's cool, but I'm not the kind of person who plays games for stealth. I play for the over-the-top action, so I'm not a really big fan of it. But because of the influence that it had on the original Xbox, I have to include it on this list, right? There we go. But I'm doing this with a bittersweet taste in my mouth, and it's all good, man. Now at number 8, we have a game that was definitely the cornerstone for many gamers' childhoods, Conker Live and Reloaded. This very nostalgic platformer was developed by Rare, one of the greatest in the business, and published by Microsoft Game Studios, and it's actually a remake of Conker's Bad Fur Day for the Nintendo 64, which I played a lot in my childhood. And this one here introduces this new multiplayer mode, and you basically play as a greedy, alcohol drinking squirrel named Conker, who is striving to return home to his girlfriend by jumping over obstacles and solving puzzles and fighting enemies. It's pretty much the classic platformer game, right? And it played really well on the Xbox. It was released in 2005 for this console here, and it actually did pretty well in terms of being fun, at least in my opinion. There was a lot of really good praise directed at the humor, the sound, the visuals, the gameplay, This game was fun, but financially speaking, it was kind of a bust because it sold well below expectations, right? Although it did gain a cult following. I had a lot of fun playing the original, especially with my friends, right? Back in the day, there wasn't really a lot of online games, so most of my experiences with my buddies were couch co-op, right, until the 360 came around. But games like this were always, with 2 controllers or more on the same couch, and it was really cool. This game is very underrated. I like all the sequels as well. And it's very cool, but it's not as awesome and epic, let's say, as this next large-scale game here, which is the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. That's right, folks. At number 7, we have this awesome action role-playing fantasy game that was developed by, of course, Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. It belongs exclusively to Bethesda. Long before Oblivion and Skyrim, there was Morrowind, right? And you play as a created character. You make your own person, hero, or whatever. And the story is centered around a demigod, which is housed within a volcanic mountain, right? And this demigod seeks to gain power and free Morrowind from Imperial reign, and that's where you come in. You basically play as the character traversing through the land and completing missions and side quests and trying to understand more about the story. It's pretty big and epic, especially for the Xbox standards back then. Right now, there was a very detailed open world and free roam gameplay, which actually helped this game to win Game of the Year award back in the day, and it was actually nominated for many other awards, but it won Game of the Year, and it sold over 4 million copies across its time on the Xbox. And this game was really ahead of its time, right? This was long before the Witchers and epic scale games that we have today, like for example the aforementioned Skyrim or Zelda Breath of the Wild. This was actually kind of like the predecessor to all of these open world games, which is awesome. I'm not a big fan, that's why it's at number 7, but I have to recognize its greatness. I forgot to mention that Elder Scrolls 3 was released in 2002, and in that same year we had one of my personal favorites from the original Xbox, Blinx, the Time Sweeper. Yet another really fun platformer, also released in 2002. It was developed by Artoon and published by Microsoft Game Studios, and this game here is quite something because you play as this anthropomorphic cat named Blinx who's on a mission to save the world and rescue a princess from an evil gang, armed with his trusty TS-1000 vacuum cleaner, which does a lot of really cool things in the environment, right? You can slow down, speed up, reverse, or even stop time to do things, right? It's a very cool and underrated mechanic that was ahead of its time in my opinion. This game was a lot of fun, bro. I don't know. It's today it didn't age very well. It's kind of cringy, but it was really good at the time. That's how these old games work, And fun fact, Blinx was actually originally intended to be the Xbox mascot to compete with, Sega's Sonic and Nintendo's Mario. But unfortunately, because this game was terribly unpopular and didn't sell very well, it did not happen at all. Master Chief eventually went on to become the mascot, of course, right? This game kind of sucked, but at the same time, it didn't. It's what we gamers call a guilty pleasure, right? We play it and it's so bad that it's good, but honestly, to me as a kid at the time, it was a lot of fun. That's how old games work, right? It was really cool. But the next one here is a little bit more epic and is meant to be taken much more seriously. The very, very awesome and incredible Jade Empire.
Introducing an action role-playing game of mythical proportions.
This game right here really separated the men from the boys. This pushed the Xbox's capabilities to the max. It was released in 2005, and to this day, I believe it's one of the best games in all of the Xbox catalog, right? All of the consoles ever been released. This is an action role-playing game that was developed by BioWare and published by Microsoft Game Studios, and basically you play as a spirit monk, right? It draws from Chinese mythology, and you're on a quest to save your kidnapped teacher from dark forces. This game has a little bit of everything, right? You know, you've got a linear narrative with morality-based choices that you can make that will impact the story and gameplay progression as you go through it, right? So it's very similar to what we have today in the form of Telltale games, for example, right? It's really, really cool. You can make choices that will impact the game, and this for an Xbox at the time was very unparalleled, at least I think so. Chinese mythology and folklore, man, it influenced everything in the game from, you know, the combat, the world, the script, the constructed language, and the music, right? They made a language that you can actually hear in the game that was real traditional Chinese, so it drew from a lot of Chinese history, which is what makes it so cool, especially if you're into Asian culture. It's kind of like the Yakuza games today, or maybe Shenmue 2, which was also, you know, an honorable mention for the original Xbox that didn't make it onto this list here. But Shenmue 2, Jade Empire are the same kind of awesomeness, but to me, Jade Empire will always have a special place in my heart and on this list as well. And now at number 4, we have the ultimate fantasy video game on the original Xbox. Very underrated, very cool, still holds up well today, Fable. This game was released back in good old 2004. My oh my, was that a good year for games on the Xbox, huh? Well, games in general. Now, this is an action role-playing game set in a really cool fantasy world, and it was developed by Big Blue Box Studios and published by Microsoft Game Studios, the ones who pretty much published the vast majority of the games on this list, right? You play as an unnamed hero who loses his family in a bandit attack, and then after he leaves the Heroes Guild, he is left with a choice that the players make, where either you can live up to his name or put him on a path of darkness. It's a very good story, you know, it's not convoluted at all, and it makes a lot of sense. And now this game here was really, really good, okay? There were a lot of positive reviews for it, you know, and there was a lot of praise directed towards the quality of gameplay, the execution overall. However, the developers promised a few features, quite a few features actually, that were not present in the final game, right? So basically, there were a few things that they said that were going to have before the launch, and when the game came out, they weren't there. It was a little misleading and made the first game kind of hampered by that, but there were 2 sequels, you know, there was Fable 2 and Fable 3, and the first game was remastered later on, so it kind of made up for all of that, in my opinion at least, right? But video games aren't like movies, right? Video game sequels get better and better, so Fable 2 and Fable 3, really freaking awesome. But the first one, in my opinion, is criminally underrated, and you really should play it. I think they might even have it on Game Pass remastered, maybe, but so pretty cool. And now we get to the ultimate, right? This is the top 3, and the third game is one of the hardest games I've ever played in my life, and I still hate it to this day, Ninja Gaiden. Let me go on record to say that I absolutely despise this game and all of the sequels, all of the spin-offs, all of the media, except for Dead or Alive. I actually like the character in that series, but I could never finish a single Ninja Gaiden game, and I never will try again, right? But this game needs to be on this list because of how epic it is, even though it's so freaking difficult, right? It's an action-adventure game released in 2004, developed by Team Ninja and published by Tecmo, so no Microsoft Game Studios right now. You play as Master Ninja Rui Hayabusa as he's on a quest to recover a stolen sword and avenge his slaughtered clan. It's very good, you know, it's really cool. The story is awesome, and so is the combat. But just a little fun fact for you guys, this game was developed over 5 years and actually had to be, you know, cut down a little bit because it was so brutally violent that they had a lot of difficulty obtaining content ratings. So at one point it was rated M, maybe even AO for adult only, right? But I think it eventually settled on M for mature, but it was really intense, man. Now, ironically enough, it was censored, of course, in some regions, but ironically enough, it sold really well in America, but up poorly in Japan. Because Ryu Hayabusa is a Japanese character, right? Maybe. I might be wrong there. Citation needed. Don't quote me on this, but I think he comes from Japan. And usually Japanese love these kinds of games and characters, you know, so it didn't make sense why it's sold so poorly in Japan. But whatever, semantics. This game is tough. I never beat it. I never beat any of them. You know, there was a remaster called Ninja Gaiden Black later in 05, right? I just hate it, okay? I tried to play the sequel some years ago for the 360. I spent money on it, Ninja Gaiden 2. I never freaking finished it. I hate it so much. I think I was like, moving on. At number 2, we have the game that I'm pretty sure every single one of you who clicked on this video expected to see, and I'm not going to disappoint you. Number 2 is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Wipe this pathetic planet from the face of the galaxy.
The Force fights with me!
Get on those gun turrets!
Released in 2003, this awesome, freaking epic, incredible role-playing game was developed by BioWare and published by LucasArts. And it's set obviously in the Star Wars universe where you play as a Jedi who ventures to different planets in search of Darth Malak, right? Who is the ultimate enemy for you to defeat. But what's really unprecedented about this game here is that throughout the story, you make choices that will determine if your character follows the light side or the dark side of the Force. It's so awesome because there are so many ways that the story can branch out, and you basically decide if your character becomes a Jedi or a Sith Lord, good versus evil, the classic depiction of that. This game was so freaking perfect back in the day. There is nothing wrong with it. Now, there was a lot of critical acclaim with good reason for the characters, the story, the sound, and you know, it was nominated for a lot of awards, you know, related to games. And there was a sequel in 04, Knights of the Old Republic 2, which is just as good, if not even better, honestly, right? But this first one here was so incredible, man. This game here is what, in my opinion, put Star Wars on the map, especially for an up-and-coming fan like myself, right? Now, Star Wars games were very a dime a dozen back then, at least the good ones, and this one here stood out and still stands out today. It really withstands the test of time. There's actually a remake, a remaster that was announced recently, right? And I really hope it happens, right? There were a lot of other games too, like the Old Republic series, but Knights of the Old Republic, or KOTOR as we call it, has only 2 standalone games, right? And I really wish there were more, but if ever there is a remake, I will play the crap out of it, man. Oh boy. But of course, now we get to the final one, which is, I'm pretty sure, very obvious, right? There's really no suspense at all, but maybe you guys want to place your bets now before you watch it. But obviously, of course, number 1 is indeed Halo Combat Evolved. No surprise at all there, right? You know, essentially a launch title for the original Xbox back in 2001, right? First-person shooter developed by Bungie, published by Microsoft Game Studios, and you play as a cybernetically enhanced super soldier named Master Chief. Just saying that name, I hear the theme music playing in my mind, right? Now, he battles aliens while attempting to uncover the secrets of the titular Halo, which is this, you know, ring-shaped artificial world that you can actually see once you land on it. It's really cool and very synonymous with the series itself. Now, the thing with Halo is that the original game itself was really cool, really fun, but this right here was such a critical and commercial success that it spawned a literal multi-billion-dollar media franchise. So not only do we have spin-off games and continuations and sequels happening still to this day, we have books and graphic novels and comics, and there's a television series on Paramount Plus. I think they even tried to make a movie at one point, or they're planning to make one now. You know, Master Chief has become the Xbox mascot and one of the most famous video game characters of all freaking time. Everybody knows who Master Chief is, right? Spartan 117, I believe, is his name, right? Or was it P19? No, P19 was mine when I first played Halo 3. So this game here is crazy, man. And Halo 3 back in 07 was quite an intense, you know, moment in pop culture history, right? But before that, there was Halo 2, which was one of the greatest sequels of all time. But I wanted to keep just the original here because this is how it all began. This is what spawned everything, you know? Now, this was a heck of a way to launch a console because this game was so popular and sold so many copies. And Halo 2 was actually at one point the game that really heavily influenced online broadband play because through Xbox Live, people played that game for countless hours, right? Halo 3 even more so. Now, the sequels lately, you know, there's been Halo 4, there's been Halo 5 Guardians, right? There's also the spin-offs, there's Halo Wars, Halo Reach, Halo ODST, but nothing holds a candle to the original, and you can at me at that. I will die alone on this mountain. The original Halo is the best Xbox game of all freaking time. And that's it, guys. That has been my list of the top 10 best original Xbox games of all time. And this is actually the beginning of a series that I'll be doing as the year goes on. I'm going to be doing the best Xbox 360 games, the Xbox One games, the Xbox Series X games, right? It's going to be a whole thing, and I'm going to branch out to other consoles as well. But this is how it begins, and I'm sorry if I seem like I rushed a little bit. It's because these videos usually get really long, so I just want to try to cut them a little bit, right, to make these a little shorter. Hopefully under 20 minutes is going to be the norm going forward because I got a little script down here, and I always love talking about gaming and doing gaming content, so this was right up my alley. Thank you guys so much if you made it to the end here. Let me know in the comments what you think, if you agree, disagree, what games you would say, what games you wouldn't say, you know, any honorable mentions, games that you think I should have said that I left out. Let me know because there are quite a few that we can discuss. And if you happen to like this video, please go ahead and give it a like and also subscribe to my channel because I release videos every single week, and while you're at it, hit the notification bell too so you can know exactly what time I upload, and it's all good. This is Chazzy signing out for now, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Roll the outro screen.